What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with a preview for the St. Jude Classic. It's being played at TPC Southwind, and this is the week before the US Open. What that is going to end up meaning for us gamers is that it's going to be a pretty weak field. A lot of guys taking the opportunity to take the week off, get to Erin Hills early, be well rested for the US Open, leaving us with not the best field ever, but plenty of guys to talk about and plenty of opportunity. The prize pools are still going to be there, so might as well try to go out and win them anyway. Okay, take a peek at the lobby. Before we do that, we'll talk a little bit about my spreadsheet, and we'll talk a little bit about this course. So here's my spreadsheet, and these are my key stats for the week. If you're new, I do this every week. I choose stats that I think are important for this tournament and for this course. And then I put a little secret sauce on there, and I come up with a score for everyone, ranking them depending on how good they are. 100 is the perfect player, 50 is average, and everything else is, 0 is the worst player ever. So you see what's kind of going on here. Let's talk about the stats. I went with good drive percentage, and that's going to look familiar from the last couple weeks, and a lot of these might. This is another par 70, which we'll talk about in a second. So I think this is now 3 out of 4 weeks for par 70s, and a lot of these might look the same. But good drive percentage. This is a very difficult golf course. Always ranks as one of the hardest courses on tour. It has the 7th hardest fairways to hit and the 6th hardest greens to hit. That's pretty interesting. So I chose good drive percentage because that's a more accurate representation of your first 2 shots. Do you hit the fairway or fringe and then able to, or fairway or first cut, and then able to hit the green or the fringe, right? So not only do you have to hit the fairway, but you have to hit it in the proper area to hit the green. With how difficult this is going to be this week, I think that good drive percentage is a very good indicator. With that being said, certainly a second shot course. You're going to have to be exact. You're going to have to be really good here on approach shots. So strokes gained approach is all encompassing. I'm throwing that in there. Par 4 scoring, which I spelled wrong. Par 4 scoring. So again, it's a par 70. So there are, let me make sure I get this right, 12 par 4s, 2 par 5s, and 4 par 3s. That adds up. So that is a par 70. So par 4 scoring is obviously going to be very important. The next 2 actually have significant correlation to the winner, or at least to success here, which we don't always see, especially for strokes gained putting. That's not always a correlator. This week it is big time, so that's in there. And then with the greens that are very difficult to hit, guys are going to need to get up and down. So we're going with scrambling for this week. All right. With that being said, let's look at the players. Rickie Fowler, 12,000, the odds on favorite to win. What are we going to do here? Comes off a T2 at the Memorial. I loved him. He is my number 1 player in my key stats. You see him right there at number 1. He's got it all, right? I mean, I just don't think you get him at a low ownership here. I think he's like the chalk cash game play. If I'm playing a GPP, I'm probably not thrilled to roster him, but you're going to have some level of exposure to him. I just imagine the masses are going to be running to Fowler, and listen, I love him too, but almost just from a game theory standpoint, it's going to be really difficult to roster him at any significant percentage just because I know the rest of the field is going to as well. I think there's other GPP options. So this is not a knock on Fowler's game. He's my number 1 ranked golfer. I think he's awesome, but know what you're getting when you're rostering him. Koepka might be a better GPP play. So very quiet, made cut last week at the Memorial. He has turned his season around after coming back from the injury. So if you just look at the last 5 weeks, those are 5 pretty impressive finishes at 5 pretty impressive tournaments. Those are significantly difficult tournaments and fields that he put up pretty good results at. And then you flip to his performance here in the past, and you can see the last 2 years he's gone T2, T3, and a T19 in 2014 for good measure. If I didn't say, I'm not sure if I did, this spreadsheet is available on dfsondemand.com. It's got a bunch of different tabs at the bottom with a lot of cool stats. It's part of the subscription, but I think I have a coupon code. I think it's RickRunGood. This will be like $1 a week for the whole year or something like that. So well worth your time. All right, Adam Scott had a really good week. I think he'll be fine. But here's someone, Francesco Molinari, a guy that obviously plays a lot here on the PGA Tour, but also plays a lot on the Euro Tour. And guys that do that, guys that play a lot on the Euro Tour, are always forgotten about when we start making these DraftKings rosters for the PGA. And I don't know if it's just the general public doesn't have a lot of exposure to them or what, but they get overlooked. And these are the type of fields that we want these guys in. Not particularly Molinari, he's made a career out of playing really tough fields really well, but other guys that are of this stature, or guys that may fly under the radar from the Euro Tour this week, are going to be really important because it's such a weak field. So Molinari in general always gears it up for big events. Here we go. So the BMW PGA, so that's a big event on the Euro Tour. He comes in second. What was that, last week or the last time he teed it up? T6 at the Players, just not bangs out top 25s everywhere. Look at this, the T7 at the Arnold Palmer. That's a tough event. Molinari is awesome, and then he just really fits for me here. So if we look at my key stats, Molinari is my third-ranked golfer, and it's thanks to very accurate and very good off the tee, and the strokes gained approach. He's best in the field. Best in the field. Par 4 scoring, best in the field. Okay, so we've got someone who's going to take on 12 par 4s, more than the average tour event, and he's number 1 in par 4 scoring. And I already told you it's a very difficult approach shot course, and he's number 1 there too. So I'm actually shocked he's not the number 1 golfer. He kind of falls off on putting, where he's just about average. But other than that, it's a pretty sparkling record here for Molinari. So my goodness, if that putter heats up at any point this week, this guy's probably going to go really, really low. All right, keep going down the list here. Berger, the defending champ, he actually ranked really highly for me. Henley ranked pretty highly for me. Mickelson is the second best all-time scorer here in terms of scoring average. So Koepka and Mickelson, 1-2. So Phil, interesting because he's not going to play the U.S. Open, or at least says he's not. I'll believe it when he's not teeing it up on Thursday. But Phil, this is, I don't know. Is this like his hurrah before the U.S. Open? He comes out and says he's not going to play it, and now he should just come here and win this. I don't know. The fact that it's difficult. It's the fact that it's going to be difficult for everyone to hit fairways. I don't know if that's advantageous for Phil, because that might level the playing field for him, considering he's been so bad off the tee this season. I don't know. I think he's worth a GPP flyer more than anything. I wouldn't be thrilled to roster him. But someone who I think really, really flies underneath the radar here, or at least will be a buy low option, is going to be Billy Horschel. So gets cut last week. Didn't play all that terribly. He shot a 78 on Thursday. Other than that, 71 on Friday. That was fine. Wins at the Byron Nelson. And we've talked about this before, where after you win, what's going to happen next? You have to do the whole media circus, whatever. Hard to kind of stay on track. Played pretty well at the Dean and DeLuca, then just gets slapped in the face at the Memorial, right? So hoping Billy Horschel gets back to reality here. And there's a lot to like. So for my key stats, here's Horschel, number 15. Really good off the tee. Really good par 4 scoring. It's going to be hard to overlook. And then if you want to throw in his performance, it's a little deceptive. And before I show you that, I was basically all in on Horschel last week. I had a ton of him, and he missed the cut. And I imagine that there's a lot of owners that are kind of in the same boat, where they're just not going to be compelled to roster him again this week. His recent history is deceptive. So again, here's my chart that is ranked by average finish. So if I finish 10th and 20th, that's 30 in 2 events, so it's an average of 15. Billy Horschel's average is 49th, which is not good at all, but it's all because of this cut T72 stretch. The last 3 times he's played it, 3 top 10s. T8, T6, T10. He's having a great year. He won a couple of weeks ago. He fits this course. I'm back in. Give it to me, baby. I'm all in here. I just think that he's gonna go from 6,700, miss a cut, to 9,500. Who's rostering this guy? Who's gonna roster him? Sickos. I will. Ugh. I'll probably be alone, but that's okay. All right, we talk about him a lot, so I won't spend too much time on it, but Kyle Stanley, this is a really good stretch for Kyle Stanley. I mentioned that we're getting a lot of par 70s. We're getting a lot of courses that the fairways are hard to hit. We're getting a lot of courses where the greens are hard to hit. That's a good combo for Kyle Stanley. Outside of the cut at the Dean and DeLuca when everyone was all in on him, we bought back in again last week. It was awesome. The T6 with 99.5 DraftKings points. T4 at the Players, T8 at the Shell Houston. This guy's knocking on the door. This is what we talked about 6, 7, 8 weeks ago with Wes Bryant, where we said Wes Bryant is knocking on the door. This guy is going to win soon, and it might be one of these weak field events. And he goes out and he wins what? The RBC Heritage? Kyle Stanley's in the same boat. Knocking on the door, looking for a chance to win, and it might come in a weak field event, something like this. If you look at my stats, he's 9th. Again, awesome off the tee, awesome approach, awesome par 4 scoring. This is the stretch of the season. Like, we might never roster him again after this. That's not true. We definitely will. But this is the best stretch of courses that he's probably going to play this year. The only thing that kills him is the putter. It's the only thing. And it gives me a little bit of reservation because I know what a big correlator strokes gained putting is this week. But you cannot deny everything else. Kyle Stanley, I think, is a really good option. All right, I talked more about him than I wanted to. Sink continues to roll it out, but here's another guy. Here's another old guy, Steve Stricker. Has everyone forgotten about this? So he's made 4 straight cuts, 6 out of 7. Okay, he's got a couple of T40s in there, but he also has a T16 at the Masters and a T7 at the Dean and DeLuca. Playing really, really well. And again, wouldn't you know it, where is he? Pops up here. 7th in my key stats. And I think he has a really good... Let's see if we can find him. Oh, here he is. Okay, so the 14th best scoring average ever here. These are guys who have played at least 3 rounds. Stricker comes in at 14th. And then, yeah, here he is. Last year had a T2. So he played it once in the last, 10 years. It was last year, and he came in a tie for 2nd. So we're getting him at a really good time. We talked about converging trends last week with Streelman and Lingmerth, who are playing well and have had good success. Stricker is another one of those guys, playing very well by his standards. Only $7,900 and great course history from last year. So that's a solid there. All right, I'm going to try to go quick down the stretch here. Probably buy back in on Tway. Again, just that one miscut last week, but playing really well outside of that. We determined that there were events that may not fit his mold, but he's played well at a bunch of different courses, so I think he's worth an investment. I think Harold Varner is a little deceptive. So his strokes gained approach was awesome last week, but he did make an ace, which will help, and that boosts up his DraftKings scoring. So, aces obviously are great, and we'll take them, but obviously very difficult to predict and take a lot of luck, and that's a lot of points. So I think that finish is a little bit deceptive. Continuing to go down here, Ricky Barnes, if golf tournaments were only Thursdays, he'd be the best player in the world. But actually closed pretty well the last couple of weeks as well. So I don't think that we should continue to overlook him here, especially in a weak field like this, coming off 2 back-to-back top 20s, essentially. Peter Uihlein is another guy we talked about last week, and here's that same thing where here's a Euro coming over, and no one knows who he is. And he's made 13 out of 14 cuts, and if I told you anyone on tour has made 13 out of 14 cuts, including a top 25 last week, racks up the top 25s and the top 30s. He's had success on the PGA Tour before, T5 at the Puerto Rico this year, which was a weak field event. You'd probably be frothing at the mouth to roster someone like that. Well, his name's Peter Uline, and he's $7,200. That's probably worth an investment. And then there is probably, before we move on, just probably one other guy down here. Wow, he's really low. Did I skip him? How low is he? It's Chez Reavie. Wow, I didn't even get to him. 6,400. Essentially min priced. And I know what you're thinking, Rick, this guy stinks, and yeah, he's not great. But we're looking at 3 out of 4 made cuts, which for a guy for $6,400, you could do a lot worse. And he just jumps, whoops, out of date, let's reload, jumps off my sheet for key stats. Like, my 4th best golfer, ranked better than basically everyone. Thanks to that good drive, thanks to that par 4 scoring. So there's probably not going to be another time where I'm going to ever consider rostering Chez Reavie. But this is probably the week, because I'll tell you what, that 7 to 8K range, which is usually pretty good, in a field like this is super, super weak. So the fact that we have someone who, and these key stats have been pretty good this year. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to win the thing, but these have been pretty decent at finding value, especially. The way that he pops off here, and he's $6,400, which is there anybody cheaper than he is? 63 is the min. So I think you could do a lot worse. He provides a lot of flexibility, especially because that 7 to 8K range isn't really great in this field. All right, last thing we always like to do, go through the odds here. So I only have the win odds so far. The top 5 and top 10 odds are not out yet. Let's look for some discrepancies. Chappell and Stanley both 3,300. I'm sorry, wow, 33 to 1 to win. They are cheaper than Cabrera Bello and Scott Piercy, who are nearly twice the odds to win. Half as likely to win, and Stanley and Chappell are less expensive. Or I guess Chappell's not. Stanley is. So Kyle Stanley, pretty good price there. Stricker, another really good price, 35 to 1. He should probably be, based on those odds, maybe 88, maybe 9,000 to win this. So those are pretty good odds. Berger is actually pretty interesting. He's 3.5% to win this thing. Here you go, Tway and Varner, they're both pretty good. A lot of guys ahead of them, 150, 140, 175 to 1. Not good there. That's bad. Stegmeyer price $7,300, but only 350 to 1 to win. That's probably not good. Okay, here's my 2 guys, right? Or I talked about Uline, but Danny Lee as well. Same boat. The same price as guys who are hundreds to 1 to win. Uline 60 to 1, Danny 50 to 1. That's probably it. The rest of these are pretty straightforward. So there you go. I hope that helps. Weak field, the guys that do their research like you and I are going to benefit from that. So do your research. I just did a lot for you, but if you have any questions or comments, tweet me. It's @DFS On Demand, or leave a comment below. Talk to you guys soon, and good luck.